Asana, or posture practice, is one of 8 aspects of yoga practice. The original intended purpose of asana was twofold. One was to create strength and flexibility in preparation for meditation, and the other was to increase the flow of prana, or vital life force, throughout the body. The 3 main channels, or nadis, through which this prana flows are located through the very center of the spine, and then also one on each side, moving from side to side of that central channel. By moving, stretching, compressing, and opening these channels, we can help to create a flow of prana that's unobstructed through the physical and energetic layers of the body. Primarily, asana is concerned with the spine, and variations in positions of the arms and legs and the relationship to the floor. There are 5 major movements that the spine makes. Extension, which rounds the spine forward. Flexion, which rounds the spine backward. Rotation, which twists the spine. Side bending and lateral flexion of the spine. And axial extension, which decompresses and vertically elongates the spine. Ideally, every asana practice involves each of these movements. So let's explore different ways to find each movement in the spine. Extension is best understood as a back bend. We find this shape in the cow part of cat-cow. We find it in supine heart openers. We find it in prone postures like cobra, upward facing dog, seal, sphinx, and locust. Extension is heart opening and outward flowing. Flexion is the opposing motion of extension and is best understood by the back body opening. We take this shape in the cat part of cat-cow. We practice it with knees to chest, whether standing on all fours, or a down dog or table, or supine like a cannonball shape. We open the back body up in forward folds, and again, whether standing, seated, or supine. We find this flexion prone when we take child's pose. Flexion is a contemplative and inward flowing motion. Rotation is best understood as a spinal twist. We can take twists standing, seated, supine, and prone. Anytime the shoulders and hips are facing opposite directions, we are practicing rotation. We can also isolate this rotation to smaller parts of the spine, like just the neck, or just the hips, or just the torso. Rotation is transformative and represents flow itself. Side bending or lateral bending is best understood as these side bending poses. We take these movements in moon salutations when we lean from side to side. We can take this same motion while lying on the back. And this movement can be combined with extension when we practice like a side to side or a dancing cobra. It can be combined with flexion when we walk the head and shoulders to each side in child's pose. Lateral movement is both opening and closing. It's asymmetrical and is practiced equally on both sides to create balance. Finally, axial extension is the most utilized and important movement of the spine. It's the lengthening through the center of the spinal column from root to crown. We practice this while standing in Tadasana or mountain pose. We practice it in Sukhasana or easy seat. We also practice this passively when supine in Shavasana. We can practice this extension in head and handstand inversions. And with careful awareness, we can also practice this lengthening in a variety of other poses like triangle pose, half moon pose, warrior 1, 2, and 3, downward facing dog. And imagine that the space between each spinal bone, there's a squished marshmallow, and this movement of the spine decompresses and makes more space for each one of those. Axial extension is expansive, neutralizing, aligning, and stabilizing. So now that you know the movements of the spine, you can challenge yourself to notice which movement or movements are being practiced in each pose. If you're not sure, ask your teacher which one to focus on. Try and add at least one instance of each of these spinal movements to your asana practice each day. Depending on what kind of practice you need each day, you could take all 5 of these spinal movements supported, like in restorative yoga. You could take all 5 of these spinal movements standing in a vinyasa or like more of a power flow or strengthening class. You could take a combination of them seated and standing, supine and relaxed. As long as you have all 5 movements of the spine, you've done a complete yoga practice. A combination of sun salutations, which has a lot of forward and back movement, are flexion and extension, as well as axial extension. And moon salutations, which has a lot of twisting or rotating movements, as well as lateral motion in the spine, as well as axial extension, is a complete yoga practice in and of itself. This is partly why we have a sun salutation that is traditionally practiced in the morning, and a moon salutation, which is traditionally practiced in the evening. When we do both of those sets of things, we've done a complete yoga practice. I think it's worth noting here that these movements of the physical body do have an engagement or interaction with the movements of the energetic body, this pranic flow, as well as being a metaphor for certain kinds of feelings or experiences that we might be trying to have in life. Feeling a little down and sort of depressed, your body probably looks a little bit like this. See what happens if you open your heart and lift and open. If you are stuck in a rigid way, maybe from this axial extension, try twisting to a new point of view. Try opening up to a transformation or a new perspective. So each of these poses has sort of its anatomical content, its energetic pranic content, and its emotional or spiritual content. And when we bring these multiple dimensions to these otherwise very simple movements of the body, we bring a level of spirituality and meaning to our practice. And of course, that practice is a metaphor in some ways for how we do anything being how we do everything. So can you bring that same level of mindfulness, for example, to doing the dishes, or serving dinner to your family, or taking a shower, or taking a walk? When we bring a certain level of awareness where we observe how we are feeling in that experience, what motion or how is the breath flowing in that experience, what is the emotional content of that experience, we can observe, and from that observation learn enough about ourselves to notice when we are in or out of alignment with our flow. We can notice where there's an abundant space for flow that we can invite in, where there might be compression or a blockage of some kind. And by using these movements of our body, we interact with that energetic body and of course with the deeper spiritual truth that underlines all things. So with these 5 movements of the spine, you can now design your own practice at any time with the appropriate amount of energetic expenditure and or support that might be needed for your energy level that day. So if you have any questions about this, feel free to leave a comment or reach out to me directly. I would love to talk a little bit more about this with you and how it can help serve your personal practice. Thank you. Namaste.